Welcome to myTomorrows YouTube channel, a place we believe better informed conversations help to make drug development serve everyone better. Today we're in conversation with Karlijn Doorn, Head of Operations at myTomorrows, and we'll be talking to you about how your team provides end-to-end enrollment support to physicians who are requesting access to investigational new drugs via our expanded access programs. So a very warm welcome. We'll start with some easy questions. Who are you and what do you do?
Thanks, Ken. So my name is indeed Karlijn Doorn. I'm the Head of Operations at myTomorrows. I have a PhD in neurobiology, and after working several years in academia, I joined myTomorrows in 2017, so already 4.5 years ago. And in my current role, I oversee all the pharma operations, as well as I'm responsible for the client relationships with our pharmaceutical companies.
Right. So, as we well know, myTomorrows is focused on helping patients with unmet medical need, either via our patient-finding programs or expanded access programs. My questions for you today will be focused on the expanded access program side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Can you maybe give us an organizational view of who exactly is involved in the process from the time that a physician makes a request for a drug to the time that they start treating their patient with the drug?
Mm-hmm. Operations at myTomorrows is made up of medical affairs, regulatory, quality, supply chain, pharmacovigilance, and real data experts, and they all work closely together with very experienced program managers. Our medical team consists of medical directors, site managers, and patient navigators, and they support patients and healthcare professionals with finding information on treatment options, and if applicable, also guide them through all necessary steps required to obtain access to an investigational drug. Regulatory affairs safeguard the process and getting each case approved. The team ensures that all the required steps are taken and that all involved comply with country-specific regulations for treating the patient under an expanded access program. Supply chain is responsible for managing our logistic service providers, which includes warehouses in the Netherlands and in the US, and they also manage our distributors. They process the orders and plan the shipments and deliveries to the sites, which in our case are the pharmacies. And once a patient starts treatment with an investigational new drug, safety monitoring is mandatory. And pharmaceutical companies can outsource these pharmacovigilance services to us as well. In addition to safety reporting, myTomorrows also collects real data, for which we have a dedicated team in-house. Quality Affairs is responsible for our licenses and ensuring that all departments within myTomorrows adhere to the standard operating procedures on which our licenses are based. And last but definitely not least, we have a team of very dedicated program managers who are also the first point of contact to our pharma clients, and they oversee all the activities regarding the expanded access programs and also ensure that they run very smoothly.
Okay, that's quite the team, quite the setup. So now that we know who's who, I'd like to ask you about how the process works in a bit of detail, from how you guide a physician from the very first step in requesting access to the time that the patient then starts treatment.
Yes, so a physician places a request for a specific drug through our HCP portal, and if needed, they can also schedule a call with a medical director or a site manager at myTomorrows. And then usually the first step is to have a confidential disclosure agreement regarding the investigational drug fully executed. And if this agreement is fully executed, we can share drug information in addition to other relevant training materials for the physician about that specific treatment. And in parallel, the physician is also asked to complete an electronic enrollment request form, which enables myTomorrows' medical team to do the eligibility assessment of the patients.
Okay, so the enrollment request is completed electronically in our EDC system. Mm-hmm. Just to check, can a physician then make subsequent requests for different patients using the same login?
Oh yes, so they can create a new request or patient record with the same login. And then again, either myTomorrows can do the eligibility check or the clients can do it themselves. And we just try to do as much in parallel to expedite the process.
Great. So what happens once a patient is confirmed to be eligible?
Once a patient is deemed eligible for the treatment, our regulatory team and our site managers support the sites with all the application processes. And countries have implemented their own expanded access pathways. And for example, in some countries, ethics committees or health authority approval is required, though in other countries only notification needs to be done to such a regulatory body. And also the administrative hurdles are sometimes quite different between the different countries. myTomorrows has a very detailed regulatory intelligence on global scale, and our mission really is to reduce the complexity of this process and the burden for HCPs as much as possible.
Right. Small side note, you mentioned different countries, global scale. I was just wondering, in terms of the patient side of things, how many countries have we helped patients so far?
I think probably already around 80.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
To go back to the original question, what happens next in terms of the regulatory process?
Yeah, so once a regulatory approval is received, we coordinate with the hospital pharmacy to ensure delivery to the sites as quick and safe as possible.
So I'd like to ask, we're not a drug manufacturer, but we're involved in drug delivery. How does that work?
So our supply chain department is responsible for that. So we keep stock in our different depots. And once we get this request and we want to ship, our supply chain department coordinates the shipment lanes, times with our logistic partners. They schedule flights, etc. And then we ship either from this depot in the US or the Netherlands to the specific site. And once the shipment is scheduled and the delivery timelines are confirmed, our site managers would inform the pharmacists on the expected delivery time as well.
Right. So in real world terms, maybe you could give us an example or the highlights of a recent case we're involved in and how this process played out.
To give an example of a recent case where the drug is manufactured in the US and the physician requested actually access to this drug based in India for a patient with a high unmet medical need. And then we shipped the product from our depot in the Netherlands all the way to India to facilitate treatment.
Right. So that's a lot of kilometers, a lot of time zones. Across both these metrics, what kind of timeframes are your team working with?
That depends a little bit on the urgency of the case, medical indication, but also the regulatory framework has an impact on the timelines. But for a recent emergency case, the time from request to delivery was actually less than 5 days, including eligibility assessment, regulatory approval, and shipment.
Okay. So after this quite large or quite big collective effort, the patient starts treatment.
Yes, so when the site confirms that product has been delivered at site and when the first dose was given, they usually thank us for all of our efforts and support. And there's always a huge sense of achievement from our end as well. And it's really why we do what we do at myTomorrows.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of tied to the treatment side of things is this concept of real-world data. We cover that in a bit more detail in a different interview, but just to maybe give us a sense of what's involved for the physician in terms of real-world data collection.
So the data collected under expanded access should fall under the standard of care, so no additional interventions can take place. And we also advise our pharma clients to limit the data to be collected to make this easy as possible for the sites. And because of the relationships that our site managers build with the physicians and the easy-to-use EDC system that we have, compliance for data entry is actually really high.
Okay. So we've covered a lot of ground from start to finish. It's maybe useful now to ask you to give us a little run through, a summary of the topics you've covered.
Okay, yeah, sure, I'll try. So a physician requests access to a pre-approved medicine via our portal. And the first step is to get the CDA signed and share the treatment and product training materials with the healthcare professional. And then in parallel, the physician can complete the electronic enrollment request form to enable the eligibility check. If the patient is deemed eligible, we then support and guide the site with the country's specific regulatory requirements. And once all necessary regulatory documentation is in place, we process the order, initiate shipment. And then we follow up with the sites regarding treatment start date and perform the safety monitoring as well as the real data collection.
Brilliant. Consider us all better informed. Karlijn, thank you so much for your time.
Sure, my pleasure.